Did you? We are going to have a third amendment. Councilwoman Simon is going to explain the third amendment, which we will vote on after the second amendment. Councilwoman Simon.
Thank you. So I have a third amendment before us, which will enable me to more comfortably support Amendment 2, simply an amendment that reflects an assurance that the law department and risk management will absolutely consider offsetting the cost of obtaining a bond with all the bids when they come in. So this is something that shall be considered, and it will be reported to council immediately upon actually the situation in which that doesn't happen, basically. So it's a communication from risk management, an obligation of them to consider this practice.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Now we're going to continue the discussion about the Second Amendment. And at this point, so many people have indicated to me that they want to talk that I'm going to start all over again. So Councilman Schron.
You want the whole list?
No, I mean, you're so close to me, I can see you clearly.
We bonded so well, and I really do on this issue. So,
Right, that's why we're working closely together.
Mr. Jones indicated that he had a meeting just with the folks out of, I think, Washington, D.C. or New York, in regards to, the operative word was purchase surety bonds that he used in his sentence, and that he said that they gave $1 million bond. Those are two inconsistent concepts, obviously. They didn't give anything. They purchased the $1 million bond. And so by implication, they paid a fee of some kind for that surety bond. And if you look at this, what we're saying is when you follow Mr. Jones's belief that we want to have a flexible tool that we can use at appropriate times, was what was being said, it means that you are looking forward to unlike treatment if you want to use it at appropriate times. So I just cannot believe that anyone would want to have this at appropriate times, that the idea behind this was to actually purchase. This amendment was an alternative to the original 2%. So it's not, you can't have it both ways, saying that you don't like the 2% and you don't want this, because of the fact that other folks actually are purchasing. And eventually, if you keep doing the bond waiver and you keep giving a bias at the appropriate times towards the less competitive quote, eventually the other folks are going to leave the field and they're going to stop quoting. As time goes on, as more and more transactions are gone through this appropriate tool flexibility use, they're going to say, why should I be here at this table? And what's going to happen is the costs of those future quotes will start to creep up, and they'll start to creep up, and ultimately the taxpayer is the one who will end up paying all the cost of this process. And I just think this is, when you start doing bad policy, you're going to ultimately end up with a bad result, and this will lead to a bad result.
Mr. Chairman, if I can.
Councilman Jones.
Okay. I said this in committee, and I'll say it now because, again, we're on TV and those in TV land. You need to understand my perspective of how I came into this position as an elected official and my life experience. My family tried to build a new funeral home for 15 years, a small business, and we went to the private sector banks and we couldn't get a loan. I was age 15 or so at the time, and one of the instances, I just remember the frustration on my father's face when he couldn't get that loan to build and expand our business. For 15, we tried every bank in this city. You name them, we went into there. We paid at times for these qualifications and credit worthiness paperwork. Sometimes they got back to us, sometimes they didn't. It wasn't until the city of Cleveland created brought the Empowerment Zone, a federal program, to our city, and they came into particularly the east side of Cleveland, and started providing loans in the community. And we ran to the city of Cleveland. They got us the loan, and they brought to the table First Merit Bank, one of the banks that had rejected us actually in the months before we went to the empowerment zone. They brought them to the table. We had $1 million project. $800,000 was the loan. And 1998 was the year we took it out. And 10 years later, we repaid that loan in full. So I don't know what our credit worthiness was. I know if I pay you back in 10 years, then I can say definitively we were credit worthy, regardless of how the numbers crunched out 10 years earlier. We just couldn't get a loan. And there's a name for what I believe we experienced, and many on the east side experienced it. It's called redlining. Someone mentioned it in public comment. Our neighborhood was redlined, and it wasn't until the empowerment zone drew a line around the east side of Cleveland and said we're going to loan in this area, and I made a term for myself called greenlining. They greenlined the neighborhood. Okay, viable companies that just didn't get that loan. So I believe that there is something similar going on, and I don't have to say I believe, our study shows it. If a company can't get a performance bond, then they really can't get the contract. So by waiving it, we're giving them an opportunity. I said before, I do believe in performance bonds. I do believe in them, and what we're doing now is bringing the industry to the table. The same way Mayor Michael R. White brought the banks to the table for us. Mayor Michael White said something that became a national model. He said, we put our money in your banks as Cleveland residents. If you don't loan to the businesses in our community, we're not going to put our money in the bank. That was in your banks. That wasn't a legislative action, that was an administrative action. And because of it, partnerships were established. So when your comment is the difference between purchasing and giving, a company just can't walk in and purchase if that surety company won't give and sell to them. So the words might be semantics, but it's important that we allow these companies to make the purchase of these products. And again, I'm happy to say that the surety industry, many in this industry, has said they are ready to step up and do more. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. Councilman Germana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me say that, the most disappointing thing that I'm experiencing tonight is I'm trying to get no performance bond legislation for minority businesses, women businesses, disadvantaged businesses. I'm trying to get this passed. So I'm for it. I'm glad that Purnell Jones's funeral home got the loan, but they paid the loan. They didn't get the loan with no rules. They paid the rule. They paid the loan as they went along. Look at the foreclosure crisis. All these banks loaned thousands and thousands of people. And what happened? The foreclosure. How many houses? We'll talk East Cleveland. Let's talk Parma. There's hundreds of foreclosed homes. A bond is not insurance. It's like insurance. It's insuring performance. But it's a loan. It's a guarantee. And that's why the small contractor has got to sign on the line and indemnify in order to get that bond. And I'm in favor of us going ahead and going without the bond. Now, in committee, we had testimony that states all through the United States had a bond limit of $150,000. It seemed reasonable, but the county of Cuyahoga County should have gone with $150,000. I was voted down in committee, and I respect that. The majority said, listen, if we're making a statement that we're really going to help the disadvantaged, because they have been, the disparity study told us that they've been disparate, and we know that we have that situation. So I went along with this. But, apparently the level playing field is something that people have a problem. But let's talk about competitive bidding. Are we throwing out competitive bidding? There's a reason you have competitive bidding. We're not going to allow steering. We want to have competitive bidding. Well, how can you have competitive bidding if you're not using the same ingredients and not bidding on the same basics? So, you know, we hashed all this out. Had this couple amendments come up, this would have passed with flying colors. But, you know, at the last minute, we're changing the deal. You know, you hear in the news media all these candidates talking about this is rigged and that's rigged and there's no rules and the rules are against us. Well, the administration presented in committee what the formula was going to be. So the 2%, you know, I never really agreed with the 2%, but I believe in competitive bidding. And if the small contractor, not big business, the small contractor that could get a bond, why should they be at a disadvantage to somebody that doesn't we're giving the opportunity to? The other thing that's important, and I can't stress this enough, is if the contractor screws up, you know, there's people that were working for these contractors and worked hard, the sweat of their labor and depending on a check. And you know, that's the beauty of having bonded contractors. And the workers get the guarantee that they're going to get paid. And, you know, it's devastating to, you know, not only just the small contractor, but those workers that invested their time, they got to make sure that they got paid. And all the different suppliers down the line. If there's supplies involved, if the contractor bid wrong, you know, they're going to be standing in line for money. So there's good reason to have bonds. But I'm for, let's give the disadvantaged the opportunity. But we have to have some rules. We passed tonight an ethics code. The ethics, there's rules that we got to follow. All I'm saying is what was put into language was what the administration offered, and it was all set. Now we just want to throw the rules out. They want to make up their rules, and there's nothing wrong with this. You know, I'm for giving the opportunity of bonds, but we got to have, I don't want to call it a level playing field, but competitive bidding.
Mr.
Thank you,
Mr.
Councilman.
Chairman, please, if I
I believe we're at the end of this debate. Councilman Jones, would you like to have the last word?
would like to have the last word.
I think you deserve it as the
Thank you.
sponsor.
Councilman Germana mentioned competitive bid contracts. It alludes to if these contracts are competitively bid and the person who won the contract won it, and now we're looking to give contracts to African Americans, Hispanics, females, when they were competitively bid. Competitively bid is important, and but it's not the end-all be-all. Opportunity is not factored into that, and opportunity is what is needed. Let me give you an example. We are trying to change the economy here in Cuyahoga County. But this same discussion was happened years ago when I was a child and when I was in high school. And it was in the sports. There was one position in football that an African American could not participate in. And we are talking about a racial disparity here in Cuyahoga County. And that one position was the quarterback position. A competitively bid contract where for some reason African Americans could not merit winning the quarterback position. And there was a long discussion about that in those years. Did the African American have the intellectual capacity to play the position? Did he have the leadership skills to play the position? And these were, in in the halls of academia on Sunday morning sports shows, intelligent conversations, coffee table conversations around that, and around this potential inferiority. It was contentious, but as a nation, we pulled together, and in that particular economy, African Americans were allowed to have the opportunity, and it's a non-issue today. It's a non-issue. We have Peyton Manning and Cam Newton, and everybody plays a position, and the economy in football has grown as a result. No different than Michael Jordan impacted the economy of the NBA, and it is a non-issue. We're having the same conversation today. It's not about whether a minority has the capacity to do this job. Should we make sure that they don't fail and bring the county resources down? No, there is a strong, viable industry of minorities who have been neglected. And it is time that they receive an opportunity. And I just couldn't allow that to go out into the atmosphere and the airwaves without at least responding. We are not putting the county at threat. We are doing our due diligence. Risk management will be done, but the residents of this county, every resident, will benefit from the legislation we're putting forward. Small business, regardless of color, will actually have greater opportunities. Small business, we are setting aside for small business. When the statement was made of big businesses and small businesses competing with one another, and that is a true threat. Small businesses are competing with the larger companies for contracts, and that is why we are setting aside some for the small businesses, again, regardless of color. Okay? So I just had to respond to some of those comments, and thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, would you please call the roll on the proposed amendment 2?
Calling the roll on amendment number 2. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Simon?
Yes.
Mr. Greenspan?
No.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Germana?
No.
Mr. Gallagher? No. Mr. Schron?
No.
Ms. Conwell?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
And Council President Brady?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, I believe we have now a third amendment. Councilwoman Simon, move to amend.
Move to amend Amendment 3, which is in front of everybody.
Second. All right. Any discussion on Councilwoman Simon's amendment? Councilman Gallagher.
I see where you're going with this, but I'm not certain without really listing what we're going to do here. I mean, we're just passing an ordinance on a wing and a prayer that people are going to be straightforward and across the board, and I have no doubt most people would be, but not all of us are going to be sitting in this room 40 years from now. And a concern that I have and have had with this, and have remained quiet about this, is the building up of the straw man of the big business. I disagree with the executive, with all due respect, the big company versus the little guy. Well, I'll take the same scenario. A little female-owned business bids on that $100,000 contract, gets the bond, because she drove Uber for a month straight to get the bond money. And then another minority company comes in, pick the minority, and they're 2,000 under. So we have a minority go-getter, and then we have a minority that's going to get the contract, I guess, unless the law director wants to tell me within 60 days how he's going to determine who's going to get that contract. And Mr. Law Director, I think you're a pretty good law director. I think you see this going to federal court. I see this whole thing falling apart. Am I wrong? In essence, what I'm asking you, this could be messy.
In every bid, there's a potential for litigation.
This, not like this.
Yeah. In every bid, there's a
When it's
potential.
your discretion, when it falls to you, an unelected official, see, that's where I have the problem with all of these. So I'll withdraw my question to you. That's my concern. I think it's a legitimate concern. I think we're building up straw men with the big business versus the little guy. There are only 1 or 2 contracts a year that these will qualify people for. But I see a problem down the road, and I think it's going to be a big problem. So that's why I'm against this, the previous one and this one.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. I'd like to have a roll call on Amendment 3.
Talking the amendment, too.
Councilman Strawn.
Thank you. Like Mr. Gallagher, I'm concerned that we heard the reference in the prior about the flexible tool with the appropriate utilization and unlike treatment. My concern is that we're looking to create an outcome, not an opportunity, with what we're doing here. And this actually helps to reinforce that. If we're going to do anything with this language, it should be that it will come back to council for actual approval, not just come back for us to look at. I don't read this in here. I don't read that. I have heard my colleague, Councilman Jones, talk about his background, and I applaud and celebrate that. But I can sit here and tell you that almost every little company, including ours, was a company in which I personally signed a guarantee for our loans. My father personally signed a guarantee for those loans. That's what goes into creating and starting those businesses too. And the fact that they might not be creditworthy, we're not even talking about that here. We're talking about offering up insurance in the form of the bond. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to give a preferential treatment for those who don't want to pay for it, not creditworthiness, but just how we cover and provide support for our taxpayer. So I will not be supporting this either.
Thank you, Councilman Strawn. I'd like to have a roll call vote on Amendment 3.
Calling the roll for amendment number 3.
Mr. Chairman, may I interrupt just so we're clear what we're actually voting on?
We're voting on Councilwoman Simon's amendment.
Councilwoman Simon's amendment.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Simon?
Yes.
Mr. Greenspan?
No.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Germana?
No.
Mr. Gallagher?
No.
Mr. Strawn?
No.
Ms. Conwell?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
And Council President Brady?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Now I'd like to have a roll call on the legislation. All those in favor of adopting the resolution on its merits as amended.
Calling the roll for ordinance number 2016-0006 on its merits as amended. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Simon?
Yes.
Mr. Greenspan?
No.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Germana?
Let me just say, I'm disappointed that I'm going to have to vote no for something that I was very much for because it's flawed. No.
Mr. Gallagher?
No.
Mr. Strawn?
No.
Ms. Conwell?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
And Council President Brady?
Pleased to be the final vote yes on this important piece of legislation. Anytime you try to change anything, there's always a lot of resistance. This has been a fascinating meeting. Anybody who thought county government was boring maybe know it's a little different now. And now we'll move on to the next legislation.
Ordinance number 2016-0007, an ordinance enacting Chapter 510 of the Cuyahoga County Code to establish the Cuyahoga County Business Economic Inclusion Program.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Any miscellaneous committee reports?
Yes, Councilman
Chair Brady, I will have Human Resources Appointment and Equity on May 2nd at 10 o'clock.
Anybody else?
Economic Development will be next Monday at 3 o'clock.
Mr. Chairman, the Health and Human Services Committee will meet at 1 p.m. next Wednesday, not tomorrow, 8 days from now.
Mr. Chairman, CD will meet next Monday at 9.
Miller?
Mr. Chairman, my colleagues, under miscellaneous business.
Now we're under miscellaneous business.
Okay. I just want to bring to everybody's attention in just a few days, the month of May is Multiple Chemical Sensitivity Month. And just want to say that there are things everybody can do to make things easier for those who are especially sensitive to all the variety of chemical toxins that we now deal with in the air. So I just want to remind everybody of it. Thank you very much.
Any other miscellaneous business? Any public comment unrelated to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. President, we have quite a few citizens address council. The first speaker is Mr. Rico Dancy.
Oh, good afternoon. First thing I'm going to discuss is RTA cutting the funding. I wish somebody would have put somebody who have a disability on the RTA board, because the prices what they're talking is outrageous. The second thing I'm going to discuss, Cincinnati have a text 911 with the county and the city. The county and the city have a text 911 for our hearing impaired people. Columbus, we having a death rally all around this nation on May 4th, 9 in the morning to 5, to bring more jobs to our people who are deaf, okay? We called the city of Cleveland, HR. The lady told me she's scared to take the risk to hire people who are deaf. The same as CMSA. We are tired. We said, no, we can't hire deaf people. We can't hire people who have a disability. We asked the county to do something. Help your people who are deaf in your ward. Help your people who have a disability in your ward. I'm not the only voice. We have T-shirts called Ohio Deaf Rally. On May 4th, it's all around this country. Every city, every state, all from Alabama on up. I cover Cleveland, Akron, Youngstown, and Canton. They're the one who I cover. And we are now doing a deaf rally. We are all deaf people all around going to Columbus on May 4th from 9 in the morning to 5. Tell our governor, our senate, and our representative, give us jobs. Not to tell us no more. Not to say, we hear your application later. We'll call you later. We be having that for years. That's why they have the ADA in place to hire people with a disability, not to tell us no more. We tired of saying no. Now we're going to ask. We are going to ask. If we don't get no answer, then we're going forward. Okay. So May 4th is I think it's the shooting of the Kent State also. Okay. Thank you.
The next speaker is Rich Raphael.
Mr. President, Mr. County Executive, members of council, I'm here today representing the organization Clevelanders for Public Transit. I was very glad to hear Councilman Jones make reference to improving the economy in this county, because having a robust, sustainable, affordable, accessible, equitable public transit system is a huge piece of that concept. We are a riders organization seeking safe, affordable, sustainable public transit that leaves no rider, no neighborhood, or no community out. We are also seeking to lobby for greater rider representation on RTA's board. Right now, for anyone who may not be aware, public transit in the state of Ohio and in Cuyahoga County is funded at the rate of 63 cents per person. That is among the lowest 3 levels of public transit funding in the whole country. And frankly, it's not enough to fund a fleet of bicycles with, let alone a fleet of robust buses and transit trains. In the future, we are looking to see if we can form community partnerships that we would very much like to have all of you be a very active part of, to work toward addressing the funding issues, the service cuts issues, and provide sustainable growth solutions for our transit system in the future throughout Cuyahoga County, because this is an issue that we know that affects everyone who rides the bus countywide. Originally, RTA was proposing some pretty strict cuts. 2 examples of those: a $1.25 fare increase per trip for paratransit riders, which we know are some of the lowest income, most handicapped population that the RTA serves. They have since cut that down to a 75-cent increase and made other revisions to their proposals, which you'll hear more about from a couple of my colleagues who will be coming up behind me. I would like to urge all of you under the sound of my voice, please give the information that's been handed to you and what you hear today very serious consideration. If you have any questions or concerns, most of us, the 3 of us, will be around after this meeting is over, and we'll be happy to answer questions that you have, and we hope to be able to meet with you all to discuss this matter further at a future date. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
The next speaker is Mr. Nathan Malakowski.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for giving me a chance to talk quickly here. I'm also with Clevelanders for Public Transit. I'm a current resident of Cleveland in District 7. I just wanted to give you a little more context as to what we've been up to over the past few months. So we have held rallies and demonstrations against RTA's proposed rate hikes and route cuts. The most recent iteration of those proposed service changes are in your hands. Those were presented to RTA board this morning, and I wanted to make sure that you had those. I've included with that our demands as an organization of RTA, which includes that better representation on RTA board, as well as our Bill of Rights, which is sort of a broader document in terms of a vision for public transit in Cuyahoga County. I wanted to reiterate that this is a countywide issue. It's kind of more obvious of a problem in districts 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. But for instance, in District 4, in Parma, we have Susan Bradfield and Audrey Johnson, who got 100+ people in their apartment building, the Regency, to petition against the cut to the 79A. We have District 5, the 86 is being cut all south of Bagley Road, and there's a man named Ulrich Nuss there who got hundreds of people to sign petitions against this cut. In District 2, the route to NASA, where workers are being transported there, is being cut. In District 1, we have cuts in Bay Village to the 43, as well as North Olmsted students will no longer have the bus. District 11, the Mayfield Village mayor stood up against this. District 6, we had city council person in Independence, Bob Wagner, stand up against this. There's cuts in Brecksville. And so across the board, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are impacted by this who are standing up. So if RTA says that's just 1%, that's not an accurate picture. These are people's jobs and livelihoods that are being impacted. So I think we all need to be abundantly clear on that. Folks might have to move or lose their jobs based on these cuts. So moving forward, we've had 50 or so people from across the county go down to Columbus with us to lobby for more funding. As Rich said, we intend to strengthen and deepen relationships with all levels of government to ensure that we have affordable, accessible, and reliable public transportation for years to come. Thanks.
The next speaker is Ms. Alana Faith.
Good evening. I'm Alana Faith. I'm a homeowner in Cleveland, actually in Donna Brady's ward. I also am currently now reliant 100% on RTA for my transportation and am also now a paratransit passenger. RTA originally proposed a 123% increase to monthly passes for RTA passengers. Regular passengers were going to realize a 23% increase. Now, as of this morning, they have amended that somewhat. I don't have the current percentages, but it's still more than people can bear. A funding deficit of $7 million is now being laid on, being burdened by those people who are working poor, seniors, and disabled. Those are the most fragile in our community, and those are the people that are being burdened with making up for this $7 million deficit. So we, as Nathan mentioned, we were in Columbus last Tuesday. We were meeting with the governor and a number of legislatures. We were very fortunate to speak to many of them. We're here tonight to try and bring this to your awareness. You were told that funding stands at 63% per person. That actually puts us below South Dakota. So I don't know how many major cities you can name in South Dakota, but I'm quite certain that they're probably not, and I know this for a fact, they are not of the population size of Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. Not to mention Toledo, Youngstown, and the other major cities that are in Ohio. So this is statewide. It affects Cleveland especially. And so we really want to bring this to your attention. I personally spoke at the City Council Transportation hearing when RTA was there making their presentation. The man that was sitting next to me actually works at City Hall. He will have to leave his job if the route cuts are made. He will no longer be able to get to work. Nathan mentioned the cuts that are going to NASA. One of the women that was at a town meeting at Gunning, speaking to RTA, works at NASA. She is sight impaired. So for those people, they are in jeopardy of having to give up their employment because they cannot get to work. So this is extremely serious. It goes across the board. The prices, the rate increases are for everyone. Regular riders, people who use park and ride, students who are 6 to 12 years old. I saw a young man about 10, actually, when I was riding the bus here this evening, and he was on his way home from school. It's a 10-year-old boy riding the bus, and all those people are going to have to pay more. And I take it that my time is up, so I think you've had enough information for this evening, and we really hope to have an opportunity to speak with all of you at some point, if not tonight, in the future. Thank you.
Ms. Bonnie Sykes.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Sykes from Lakewood, Ohio. Jobs are the lifeblood of a community. Some communities spend millions to attract employers. Unfortunately, Lakewood sends jobs away. In December 2015, Lakewood City Council passed an ordinance that closed Lakewood Hospital and sent 1,100 jobs out of Lakewood and some ultimately out of Cuyahoga County. Losing 1,100 jobs is devastating to a local economy and ultimately to the economy of the entire county. So when local elected officials make a colossal mistake like that, Not unlike what happened in Flint, Michigan, community members must appeal to the next higher body, which is the county. So that's why we are here. What happened in Lakewood is just the beginning of the jobs and economic losses that the clinic is causing in Cuyahoga County. The new clinic inpatient hospital in Avon is almost complete, and I hear the Cleveland Clinic purchased property in Mentor, and rehab beds are now being moved out of Euclid Hospital. Lakewood Hospital is unique because it is not owned by the clinic. It's owned by the city of Lakewood. It was a well-endowed and profitable hospital before the Cleveland Clinic planned its demise, and the city of Lakewood let it go with no competitive bidding. But we have an opportunity to save both the hospital and the jobs. The citizens of Lakewood gathered 3,400 signatures for a referendum that will be on the ballot in November that will stop the deal. I ask each and every one of you to endorse eliminating the ordinance that closed Lakewood Hospital. Let's rectify this colossal mistake and return competitive health care and jobs to Lakewood. Thank you.
Very much. Don Bryant.
Good evening, thank you. I'm a board member of Cleveland Peace Action, and we worked with the coalition of American Civil Liberties Union, National Association of Colored People in Cleveland, the National Lawyers Guild, and many others. And on March 21st, we presented a sample resolution to the Cleveland City Council requesting transparency of purchases of weapons, equipment, and especially military-grade equipment for the Republican National Convention security. And I would say that the RNC has been designated as a national special security event, which entails certain mandates imposed on the city in terms of federal security requirements. However, regardless of the designation, we believe city administrators must seek community input with respect to equipping and deployment of Cleveland Division of Police and county sheriff officers during the RNC. This includes input into how the $50 million grant will be utilized in order to balance security needs appropriate to the situation with respect to the fundamental rights of participants, protesters, bystanders, members of the media, visitors, and others. Now, our coalition will be asking the county council to adopt a similar resolution at a time when police brutality issues are in the focus across the nation, at a time when the city of Cleveland has agreed to pay $6 million to the family of Tamir Rice. And I would like to name, besides retraining after the convention, I would like to name some of the weapons that will be considered by our county and by our city. And these are the ones that we'd like to see either not purchased at all or definitely removed after the convention. Weapons such as automatic weapons, including those that are 50 calibers or greater, tactical vehicles, including highly mobile, multi-wheeled vehicles, armored vehicles, mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, drones that are weaponized, grenades, including flashbang grenades, stun grenades, and grenade launchers, silencers, and long-range acoustic devices, which have been found to be lethal. Finally, let us be preventive, proactive in our security of the community and policing arrangements for the RNC. Thank you.
The next speaker is Captain Steve Eckert.
Hi, Captain Steve Eggert. Captain Steve Eggert, I live in Lakewood. The good news in Lakewood, the fire department, the schools, recycling, refuse, streets, street clearing are all good or excellent, and they really are. The bad news, a huge mistake which is correctable, it is very correctable, has occurred. The closing of inpatient at Lakewood Hospital. even after the money-making departments were intentionally stripped out of Lakewood Hospital by Cleveland Clinic, Lakewood Hospital had a very positive cash flow to the tune of millions. Cleveland Clinic also charged unconscionable administrative fees. In effect, legalized thievery from Lakewood Hospital. In effect, Lakewood Hospital still had a positive cash flow. One of our fears has already occurred. A gentleman went to Lakewood Hospital with blood pressure problems. Because of Cleveland Clinic, Lakewood Hospital no longer has inpatient services. The gentleman was sent to another hospital and he died. And that will continue to happen unless this horrible mistake that Lakewood City Council and the mayor of Lakewood have let happen is corrected. And I say again, it is very correctable, and we have a strong committee that's looking into it. If you want to research more and know more of the details, go to savelakewoodhospital.org. Thank you.
Next speaker is Reverend Pinckney Butts.
Good evening once again. And I want to make a correction. When I was up here before, I did not say that the council members don't listen to the public voice. You've heard me speak in the past, and I've said thank you for listening. But since you mentioned that, anytime any agency that works under the auspices of your allocating funding is allowed to make up lies about my children and me, conspire with another county in the United States of America, go in with guns into a school, steal my children, hold me hostage, and rob my baby, then make me homeless, call me crazy, and do nothing to correct it, you're not listening to the public voice, and you're definitely not listening to mine. Anytime I'm still sleeping on the floor where planks are giving in and nails are sticking up, and I don't have adequate and sufficient funding for myself and my family, you're not listening to my voice. We need to have a national slum landlord day. Let's just start there. Anytime my landlord named Jimmy Pope is conspiring to murder me, and the county, the city, the state, and the nation are saying nothing about it, you're not listening to the public voice. Anytime I get thrown off of RTA buses and get locked up in a psychiatric hospital accused of sleeping in bus shelters, which is a lie, you're not listening to the public voice. Anytime my items are stolen off of a bus, federal, state, local, documents, after I speak to a lawyer in the law department for the city of Cleveland who tells me it's not moral or ethical for him to be decent or civilized towards me, and he'll do nothing to resolve matters with me peacefully, you're not listening to my voice. Anytime I get beat up and thrown into county jail just for showing up in a justice center, given a suicide blanket and told to kill myself, you're not listening to my voice. Anytime 13 white people can gun down 2 black people on a school in a predominantly black community and you withdraw the funding, you're not listening to the public voice. Anytime a woman who's labeled as mentally ill because she's vocal gets murdered by the police, you're not listening to the public voice. And anytime a black child has a gun that's manufactured by this country and is deemed as a weapon, but a white child can have a gun and it's a toy or a defense mechanism against black people, you're not listening to the public voice. Don't minimize me. And anytime I call your office and one of your staff threatens me, you're not listening to my voice. Don't be smug with me. Don't disrespect me.
The final speaker for this evening is Mr. Eric Johnson.
Good evening, Council. My name is Eric Johnson. I work for the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. First of all, I want to thank our supporters who have been out across the state and engaging in activities of advocacy for our organization. We do appreciate that. I also wanted you to know that we have been doing our due diligence with regard to the meetings that we had with the community, the 15 public meetings that we had with the community that were well attended, and where we did hear numerous concerns in opposition to the position we must take in light of our stance with regard to our budget situation. We are looking for help. We are looking for support. I want people to know as well that we have made some suggested recommendations to our board to consider for possible changes. Nothing is in stone yet, but we have gone through a great deal of time and effort to assure the public, our ridership, and the broader community that we are concerned about what they view as good and equitable transportation in Cuyahoga County. So with that, I encourage you, if you have suggestions, recommendations, $7 million laying around, we would appreciate the support that you can lend our organization in helping rectify the situation. Thank you.
That's it.
Anybody else? No? This meeting is adjourned.